few years ago, Mr.
Okay, we go page 37. Reconvene the meeting at 6:32 on February 17th. This is the continued Board of Finance budget hearing for the 2015-2016 budget. And we will start with Department 5210, Finance Department. Joe, do you know the page?
Page 37.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Peter Aradisi, Finance Director. And before I begin, I'd like to introduce some of the sub-department or divisional heads of finance who are present here. Not everyone could be present, but we do have our city accountant, Ariane Swift.
Nice to see you.
And we have our deputy tax collector, who is currently our interim or acting tax collector, Sue Taff. And as you know, Judy Haley, her predecessor, retired back in December. And Sue has been very good to us and has agreed to serve as acting tax collector while we go through the search process for a replacement. And we have Dan Thomas, our city assessor, who is also here. And I'd ask them if they'd like to come up, or if they can stay there wherever you're most comfortable. We're here to answer any questions you have regarding the budget. And before I begin, I'll just give a short summary that overall, in spite of the small increase, we have worked hard to keep the budget flat by line item. Where we could, we did make some targeted cuts with the mayor when we met with him back in December. Some of the savings we'd like to point out are, one of the main savings is in the tax office. The Department of Motor Vehicles has had a mandate for years in which there is a certain program. If Suki, you could explain that for a few minutes?
When we report delinquent taxes to motor vehicle, they will flag people so that they can't register their vehicles before they pay their taxes. And every year we had to pay a fee to motor vehicle, basically for the program. This year they're saying that they're not going to charge that to municipalities anymore, so we've taken that out of the budget. And I'm not sure the exact number. It was about, what, $12,000, Peter?
Yeah, it was roughly on average $12,000 a year.
Every fiscal year for that.
Yes.
So we're hoping that they keep it that way. There's been some talk that possibly, but right now they're not going to be charging us.
Excellent.
So they've waived that fee for the first time this year by statute, so we cut that out of the budget, and that came, you can see that reduction in the line item.
Which line item is it?
I believe it is in
Miscellaneous personal?
miscellaneous professional fees and services. It was $20,000 last year, and it's now been reduced to $7,950. I'd like to also thank the Board of Finance for their support in prior years for the addition of the accountant to our budget. I won't go into super long detail because I know this board has been present in prior years when I have discussed the need for the accountant. And just to take a step back, in summary, this position was approved by the Board of Aldermen back in fiscal year 2009, I believe, and it was in the budget, but due to retirements of the city accountant and the previous finance director, we weren't able to fill the position, and then it was subsequently cut. As I've explained in past budget testimony, the need for the position has only grown over the years. We've mentioned, the mayor has mentioned, we have mentioned the Affordable Care Act is one thing, but it all boils down to the just many numerous projects that are on the back burner, that we have put off for far too long, that we need to address, and it only just keeps coming with the additional mandates from the state and federal government. We are grateful that Human Resources now is trying to help us with the benefits piece, but that doesn't take away from our core mission that is in finance. It's a department that encompasses many areas of the city's operations. As the city continues to progress and become successful in obtaining grants and capital projects and what have you, I think that's great. But with that growth comes additional administrative responsibilities, accounting and reporting responsibilities, and audit and oversight that falls to the finance department, and simply put, with the position of finance director and city accountant, the two positions, it's just beginning, you know, we've realized for many years that it's been too much for us to handle. My last point is that there needs to be cross-training, because right now, since Ariane came on board, I believe in 2011, we've worked with each other very closely, but there hasn't been that strong cross-training. And you also need that backup, because people need to take time off for whatever reason, and as there is turnover, and there has been quite a bit of turnover in finance due to other retirements, there is always this need to address coverage during those interim periods. So I'm open to any questions you have regarding this new position. And again, I'm grateful for the mayor and the Board of Finance for considering it in the budget again this year. And with that, I will open it up to any questions to me or to any of the division heads present.
Peter, is it possible to promote into that position?
Is it possible to promote? No.
No.
No, that's been another point that my predecessor made when she, Judy Danico, first pushed for the position for several years and finally got it in '09. One of the points that she made was that, we have cut in the finance department over the years, and those cuts have been made to the clerical positions, and there's just, within that group, there's a lot of talented people, and some have risen from clerical to maybe a deputy position or to a senior clerical position. But just to sum up, their educational background and training, while good in their respective areas, does not fit into the accounting, finance, and project management skill set that we need, quite frankly, to address the projects and issues that we're facing.
Okay, so that would be a new hire, and you have to go out and advertise?
Yes, we would have to go out and advertise. I mean, I would always defer and consult with the Human Resources Director to follow the city's protocol in terms of internal posting, but I believe, in my own opinion, that it would be very difficult to find a person to promote within finance for that position. I don't want to say it's impossible, but I don't see that happening.
I think to follow up on Peter, the preferred candidate would be a CPA. And in addition to some of the rationale or basis for the need for the position, this year we have had more than $20 million in never foreseen grants from the state and federal government. And while that is free money, or some of the money has matching funds associated with it, there is a significant administrative component to it. So I know that our accounting department and our finance department have been responsible for making sure that we do get reimbursement, if it's a reimbursement grant, or they do the necessary paperwork and documentation if it is a grant that requires significant documentation. But in addition to that, you've heard the new healthcare initiatives. Out of the entire budget, there is no new net positions. However, there are two positions which we have supplanted from other departments. One, the open space position, and two, this position in accounting, whereas we've eliminated two positions, one from health and one from sewer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Peter, thank you. Any Members of the board have any questions?
For you, Brian. Why does it necessarily have to be a CPA requirement?
I think that's the preferred candidate. I don't think that's,
Yeah.
we haven't necessarily required that, but I think there's a preference for that.
It could be somebody that'll be in the process of getting their CPA as well. Secondly, how is the salary of $78,000 determined?
That would actually be a grade below the city accountant, and that was determined when the position was first approved back in 2009.
And secondly, is there a probation time on this individual?
Yes, I believe it's a 6-month probation.
And who does the evaluation, just you?
The finance director, in conjunction with the city accountant, I believe, who would be, at this point in time, we've envisioned the city accountant to be the supervisor of the person, and then the finance director would also contribute to the probationary evaluation.
Peter, on the revaluation, you asked for 55,371,
Yes.
and last year the budget was 26. Mayor approved 36.
Yes.
Why did you ask for so much more?
What we do is that line item funds the revaluation ops reserve account, which is in our capital reserve fund. And we each year have to make an allocation to that account in order to supplement the cost of the reval, and also to make sure that we maintain funding. And instead of allocating the full cost for a given year in one budget, we smooth it out over several years. And there's always a year, I believe, and Dan can further comment on this, where we have to bump it up, if you will, to maintain that funding in the reserve fund.
The year prior to the year of reval, which would be 2015, the year we're entering in 2016, there are additional expenses, primarily due to mailings, and then the year of reval and the year subsequent to reval, there are additional expenditures. And so we try to spread that out over the 5-year period, but obviously in the 3 years, the year prior, the year of, and the year subsequent, there are heavier expenditures with respect to the revaluation.
So what are the total expenses going to be, and where is the reserve right now? Is it going to cost $150,000 and we have 70 in there? You know what I'm asking?
I know what you're asking.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure where it stands right now. It's in the neighborhood of 35,000. Total expenditures over 5 years would be projected to be 185,000.
Right.
But that's, so of that 185,000, 100, and, the majority of it, let's say 100, 120 would be in that 3-year time frame.
Okay, and how much is in the reserve now?
It's roughly in the $30,000 range. I don't have the exact number.
Yeah, 35, 36, something like that.
36,000.
So we put another 36 and we're at 70,
Correct.
Yes.
and then we need another 50, roughly.
Roughly.
Okay.
When did this start?
It's ongoing. It's been ongoing.
So you're saying
predates.
we only have about 70,000, so prior to 2013-14 budget, we expended it?
What I believe happens with this fund is, I think Ariane can remind me, do we put the whole amount into the reserve each year, or is it just?
We
We do.
In reevaluations every 5 years.
Right.
It previously was every 10 years. I think the last reevaluation we had, we took an extension, so there was a 6-year. Then it was six years the last time around, so this time the anticipation is it's going to be in 2016, October 1st, 2016. And that's what we're shooting for, and that's what we're budgeting for. And we believe that the amounts here will be
Right.
enough to
But
satisfy all the reevaluation.
What I'm concerned about is we only have 70,000 in that reserve right now. What happened to the previous reserve? When did we spend it?
It's spent.
In 2011 was our last reval, so this is building up from that. And there's costs associated post-reval in terms of litigation costs and appraisal cost and other expenses.
But they're not all payable at one time, right?
Correct.
And it's hard to predict exactly what the
Thank you.
litigation
No, I want to see this.
cost will be, so that is one of the other reasons to have the reserve, so that if during 1 year, depending on the caseload, if the caseload shoots up and there are more, there's a need to hire outside experts and counsel or appraisals, you have this reserve fund to cover those costs.
Also, Milford does in-house reval. About a fifth, almost a fifth of the cost of the reval is overtime for staff that actually do the reval, in addition to all of our other duties. Those don't lessen during the reval year. The reval year is labor intensive and we do it in-house.
Okay, and it's spent over what, 2 years, 15 and 16?
No, it's spent really over three and a half years, primarily for, yeah.
Can we get a copy of this?
Yes, please. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further? Thank you, Peter.
Dan, my office might still be
Okay,
open.
yeah, I know mine is.
Yeah,
All
if
right.
you want to make a copy.
There's
This door's open.
nothing further on Finance Department? 4143, Board of Assessment Appeals.
49.
That's Dan as well.
Oh, that's Dan, you're up.
Get that on. Well, I think this one's fairly
It's a
self-explanatory.
no-brainer, right?
That's just a,
It goes up during the revaluation period typically, right?
Right.
Okay. MIS 4215. 3940. Maybe.
Good evening. My name is Jean Mazak. I'm the MIS coordinator. Sorry. At the mayor's request, we have tried to keep our numbers low, and as you can see, we've gone up on a couple of key line items, as we do every year for maintenance purposes. But in turn, we have removed quite a bit of equipment on the capital side of things, which in our meeting, our budget hearing with the mayor, we were trying to find funding elsewhere. The one exception is an item that I understood would stay in the budget, so I'm a little concerned about it. It's a piece of equipment in our payroll process, and I'm not sure, I thought we were going to leave that line item. It's a $6,000 line item in the capital. So I'm not quite sure whether we're going to find the funding elsewhere for that.
Is this a line item that looks like it was removed entirely, or is that something?
It was when the BR3, which is what the BR2s, which is what we produce our capital items on, was broken out. I have personal computers. I had network equipment. I had software, and then I had a line item for a folder sealer for payroll purposes. And I mistakenly thought that it was going to remain in the budget. I'm not sure. Do you recall?
This is out of the computer hardware?
It's out of the computer hardware line item, yeah. It was $6,343. It's a piece of equipment that we obtained in 2003, and parts are no longer available. So this is a critical piece of equipment that we use for payroll, direct deposit, W-2s, 1099s. It basically takes the paper that we produce those items on and folds them and seals them for mailing purposes. Now, I know that ultimately the goal is to go paperless, but the unit's not going to make it much longer. So the vendor has warned us that it's a little time bomb.
So just so, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just for clarity, would this belong on the computer hardware line?
Yes.
1, 2, 3?
0123, yeah. It was,
And it was for the amount of,
$6,343.
343?
6343. Yeah.
was for it.
So, I know that brings up my bottom line a little bit, but it's something that, we desperately do need, and let's put it this way, there's no way to supplement that piece of equipment. It's not that we can go without. The folder sealer is critical to the payroll process. So it's not that we can use another piece of equipment, it's the only thing we have, so.
It produces the W-2s and the 1099s.
It doesn't produce it, it actually folds and seals them in a secure manner, so that, you know, the perforated ends on a, you get them in the mail, where you rip off the ends and you unfold it, and there's a check inside, or there's a secure item inside. That's what.
Even though they still did it on perforated paper.
Well,
They don't still
the
do it
ends
that
are perforated, and like your W-2s,
I still got it.
the W-2s that you receive,
Yeah.
those are folded and sealed in that manner.
Okay.
So basically, we do the W-2s in my office. So, but ultimately, yes, the goal is to go paperless. We just don't know exactly when that's going to happen. So obviously, if it
How would
happens
that go
before then.
paperless?
Huh?
How would you go paperless? People have to get a W-2.
There are ways to where you can email that information, yeah. W-2, maybe not in 1099s, but there are services you can use. There are different ways of doing it. You can do.
Mostly used for the weekly payroll.
Mostly.
For the weekly, either if you have a direct deposit, you get a
Direct
receipt,
deposit, right.
and if you have a check, you get a check. But one of the reasons why we need a new accountant is we need someone to champion some of the projects. One of the projects that has been long waiting in the wings is the new software project that the accountant hopefully will, or someone from the finance department will have more time to work with Gene. I don't know if you remember, but all the way back in 2009, your board allocated funding for a new software program that we need a champion in order to make happen. We need someone that can dedicate time, and whether or not this new accountant will be tasked with that, or whether it will free up time for Peter to work with Gene or Gene's department so that we can make that happen after too long of a time.
Mm-hmm.
But things like improved and updated and upgraded payroll is something that the new software will allow us to do.
So you use the equipment to do weekly payroll also.
Oh yeah, payroll, it is definitely, we have 600 checks that we produce,
Oh, okay.
checks and/or direct deposit stubs. So it's not just, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Not just year-end.
misrepresent. It's not just the year end, no. We do weekly payroll,
Okay.
but it is a critical part of the payroll
So
function.
it's 50 days payroll plus.
We could save a lot of money if we don't have this machine.
Oh, no. All right.
But I think if everyone's inclined during our technical discussion, Peter can have the
Yes.
appropriate.
Yes, I can vouch because I can see it in Gene's original request, but then in our discussions, I think it was on your DR1, but then not on the green bar. So I think that's how we missed it, but then we zeroed out the 25,532.
Right.
So maybe in the discussion, we assumed it was in there, and it got
Something
something
along that line, yeah.
something along those lines. I can
Okay.
include it for the technical discussion.
The software maintenance, is that just gonna keep up every year?
Yes, unfortunately. It is, most of the products that we use are, the more expensive of the products are supporting the financial system and the tax and assessment systems. Those are two core financial departments, financial systems, and they are the most complicated systems, and they are contractual, and they go up every year. Typically between 5 and 10%, depending on the vendor.
Are the contracts year to year?
The contracts, the financial system, we sign a contract for 4 years in advance. years, I can't remember. But basically, it's for planning purposes, so we know how to budget, and it's to our benefit so that we know how to plan for it.
Right.
But it typically goes up about 5% a year.
Well, that's built into the contract
And
then.
it's built into the contract, yes, so at least we can plan, yes.
All right. That's all I had. That's all I had.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor's office, 40121.
No, MGA, we have MPI now, don't we?
Yep.
That moved now.
Better to get moved over.
Yes, Milford Progress got moved into this section.
This one, right.
To this one. All right.
Yeah, page 91.
Scott is here.
Right,
You're part of that, right?
I am, so I will recuse myself on this. But Scott, welcome, and I'll turn the chair over to Mr. Casanova.
Hi, good evening. My name is Scott Moulton. I'm the current president for Milford Progress, also known as MGAT. And we're requesting a $25,000 grant this year. Last year, we were allotted $1, so obviously it's a pretty significant increase compared to last year. In years past, it was roughly $10,000 that we were allotted. We have a lot of projects that we are trying to undertake right now, and funding is a really big issue. We literally have no source of income, but we've also taken a lot of strides in the last year to greatly reduce our expenses. So as an example, we used to have a $5,000 administrative expense, which we've eliminated completely. Aside from an insurance expense right now, that's all of our expenses. So any grant monies that we do receive, you're talking about 95 to almost 99% of those dollars are actually allocated to specific projects. One of which is a project that we're going to look to undertake this year that we started late last year, which is the Adopt a Spot program. So if you've driven around town, you've probably seen the small wooden signs. That is a project of MPI's. This year we're looking to completely renovate, overhaul that project. We estimate it's going to be about $1,000 per spot to update the landscaping, update the signage. And there's 23 spots currently in the city, throughout the city. We've been working with DPW. You've probably noticed those big blue wayfinding signs up on Cherry Street and a couple of other locations. We've been working with them. They have, I think, about 10 or 12 ready to go. It's just the weather has kind of stalled that a little bit. We've committed to funding and working with them on 14 to 16 different signs, and a few of those actually also incorporate the village of Devon. So we've done a lot over the last several months since we were last in front of your board and the Board of Aldermen, all of which have definitely made some positive strides. But you know, one of the things, as an example, again, the Adopt a Spot program, out of the 23 spots, the majority of those spots are adopted by nonprofits. Nonprofits don't have to pay for those spots. So we're at a situation where we're going to have to charge nonprofits for those spots, but we would like to do that not in the next 6 to 12 months, but maybe give them a little bit more lead time. Maybe try to partner them up with for-profit organizations. So one of the things that Jorge Santiago, who's actually chairing the Adopt a Spot program for us, is suggesting that we do is it's almost look at this as like seed money. So once we get the project up and running, the hope is within the first 12 to 24 months, that project continues to provide revenue for MPI, and then we don't have to come back and ask for as much year to year. The other thing that we're working on right now too, and I've met with Julie Nash, and we're trying to help design and work with the Fine Arts Council too, with different wayfinding signs or "You Are Here" signs or kiosks around the train station and a couple different points throughout the downtown area, with addition to the train trestle section with the murals and possible lighting underneath the trestle as well. So we've got our hands in a couple of different projects that we're trying to complete, but funding is obviously an issue. We're running a deficit in this year, or I should say the 2015 calendar year, of about $15,000. And that assumes we receive $10,000 in funding. This past year, calendar year 2014, we ran at a deficit of just shy of $2,000. So.
Do you have any other sources of grants income?
No, not this time.
This is it?
This is it. Like I mentioned a moment ago, the hope is that we get the Adopt-A-Spot program to a point where people are paying for those sections. It's just we need effectively seed money to get that going.
The for-profits pay for their spot, right?
They do. Currently it's $250. The problem is there's only about 4 or 5 of the for-profits that are paying.
Okay.
So the vast majority of those signs are gratis.
Okay. So a nonprofit, Milford Progress pays 100% of the cost.
Yeah. And that's why, and I have pictures I can show you, but that's why if you've noticed a lot of the spots, they're a little weathered, they're a little dilapidated. We just, you know,
Because you have to.
we have to, well,
Yeah.
the organization that adopts the spot is supposed to upkeep it.
Right.
But again, if they're not paying
That's
for
what I
it.
thought. I
Yeah.
thought that the organization had to, you know, maintain it and make sure the sign was okay and do the landscaping.
And that's been, you know, the nonprofit, I mean, it's hard for everybody to get out and actually do that. So we would actually take over the maintenance of those spots. The objective is to have all 23 of the spots look fairly uniform, change out the flowers. We would pay for the landscaping each year, so it's not an added cost to DPW or anything. And actually, if you note at the top of Cherry Street there, we have the big blue wayfinding sign, and then Kiwanis has a little blue sign. They would be mirrored after that. So you'd have some consistency between all the blue wayfinding signs and those Adopt-A-Spot signs throughout the city. So it'd have a nice uniform look to it. And we've already spoken to Chris at DPW, and that's something that he's already given us a price on the smaller signs. And that's really how we've come up with the price of about $1,000 per Adopt-A-Spot to overhaul them and get them basically ready to go for springtime.
And how many nonprofits have, of the 23 of nonprofits?
I think the number's like 17 or 18. It's the vast majority. That's why we're
So we only have like 5 or 6 Adopt-A-Spots from
for
private
people paying.
corporations?
Yeah.
And some nonprofits do a very, very good job. The Irish Heritage Society does the one next to Stonebridge, and they put a lot of work into it. And again, different nonprofits, some make them look very, very nice. Just like some of the for-profit organizations that sponsored, in addition to the $250 a year, some for-profit organizations or people have actually spent a lot of money overhauling the site and beautifying the location too. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but I think MPI is looking to make it more uniform and perhaps work with some of the nonprofits. Some of them, I assume, they want to still keep their elbows in the dirt. So,
Do you have any possibility of those that are not keeping them up to take them off, the nonprofit?
Yeah, the new signs that have been designed, it's a, I forget the exact material, but it's something that you literally just slide out the name, slide in a new name. So it's very easy to do that. And it's easy to maintain. The current signs are all wood. So after a few years, they rot, something breaks. The newer signs are a lot more economical to maintain.
And do we need 23?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a question.
I mean, there's 23 there. We've actually had talk about expanding it even further, because there's a lot of different spots throughout the city that would just, it's on city property, could use a little bit of a facelift, and we're willing to accommodate it. So, the short answer is, define need, who knows, but, we'd actually probably look over the next few years to expand it out a little more, if anybody thinks that.
So you budgeted 25,000.
We're requesting 25,000.
Have you budgeted it? Have you said this is what I'm gonna spend so much on these spots and
Yes,
for your other programs?
We've allocated, we've moved money from reserves,
Okay.
totaling $15,000 specifically for the Adopt-A-Spot program.
Okay.
we're running pretty thin of monies that are already allocated to other projects. The wayfinding project, we really, we're only looking at about $25,000 to not even $30,000 in remaining assets. So we're pretty thin at this point. We're assuming when we ran our 2015 projections, we're assuming a $10,000 grant, and we're still running the organization at about $15,000 loss. So obviously, the more funding we receive, the more projects we can also take on as well.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Consideration. Thank you.
This one we can work. 17.
Okay, 17, Mayor's Office, 4121.
I'm happy to answer any questions. The items are pretty self-explanatory. They're pretty much flat from the previous year. But I'm available for any further explanation or
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any
answer discussions.
Any questions from the board?
None. This one,
Thank you. 4122, General Expenses,
19.
page 19. Thank you, Mr. Proctor.
For you to Peter.
Yes.
General expenses, who develops this budget, first of all? Is it
Peter's office and my office do it in conjunction with each other.
you two? Okay. Just a couple of the items. A personal property audit, how is that done?
That is done, we've been using the tax management, is the name of the vendor. We've been using them for a number of years. They've been very successful at conducting these personal property audits, which brings in additional tax revenue, and then they get paid, whatever they collect, they get paid 25% of that amount is their.
So there's a corresponding line item under the revenue side of the budget.
Okay.
And Peter, that's on actual collections.
Of actual
On actual collections that are new and undiscovered, above and beyond, and it's only for 1 year. So the year that the new personal property is discovered by this this company, this auditing company, that's when they get to take their percentage. For the next 5 years, they don't get a percentage.
That's where we get the added tax revenue.
We get the added, right?
They personally go out
They go
to the
out.
various firms?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay. I've always, I looked at that, I understood what it was, but I didn't understand exactly how they go about it. CCM, this is a controversial system now with other towns, not, is this the one?
I don't think so. Out of the 169 towns, 121 of them are part of CCM.
This is not the
It's
one.
the
No.
Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. It's,
I think it's CMed.
oh, that's, yeah, that's,
Yes.
that appears later on in the budget.
Right.
The fire department will give you more explanation about that and where we are. It's day by day.
I thought so, okay.
It's the regional planning agency.
How do we,
That's our council of governments,
Okay.
Strong, South Central, every, Mr. Cassignoli is asking about the Regional Planning Association or agency, and Milford is part of the South Central Council of Governments, and there's actually a state requirement that each municipality be part of one. We are among 15 other towns that go all the way up from Meriden to Madison. We're actually the most southwestern town out of our group. They help us with grants and other projects. For me, it's a once a month meeting. We're also on the Transportation Commission, So we get approximately $600,000 a year in transportation grants through the U.S. Department of Transportation that is administered through our Council of Governments. Now, it's changed a little bit. Now, it's actually administered through the Connecticut DOT, through our Council of Governments, but transportation planning and transportation projects are something that this particular group focuses on. We get a lot of other regional grants as well.
The legislature was talking about trying to use this group for, like, our 15 cities and towns would go into purchasing and all that other.
Yep.
Are they trying to make that mandatory or not? Do you know?
At this point, they've gotten some grants. I'm not sure, some of the money has come from the federal government, some from the state government, to develop better purchasing power, to leverage our purchasing if we do it on a regional basis. And right now, there's some studies that are happening through this agency. We also got, for example, a $700,000 grant for storm resiliency for the 5 towns that are along the coastline in our COG. Madison, Branford, New Haven, West Haven, Milford. But there's several grants that we've gotten through the Council of Governments because we're part of it.
Well worth it.
Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Golf course, it's 40121, but it's on page 112.
I don't see
118.
I don't see anyone here from the golf course. I'll circle back to Dick Austin.
Yeah.
But
Self-funded.
if you have questions, though, I can have him come to ask if he will come the next time, or another representative from the Golf Course Commission.
Yeah, I was just curious about the shed they built up there. Where did the funds for that come from? I don't see it here.
That came through money that was specifically allocated for the golf course
The reserve
fees
fund?
that we get. Yep.
Yes, it's the golf course open space fund. There's a certain amount of revenue that comes in every year per the management contract. It's been determined over the years, and that piece of the fees goes into that reserve fund, and it can be used for
Capital upgrades.
That go through planning and zoning, by the way. I don't like it.
I don't think there was any land transfer or anything that would have affected planning and zoning.
But the
It did,
the permit.
that out appropriation, I believe, it did go before the Board of Aldermen. There
Went to the
was,
Board of
yes,
Aldermen,
it did go through the Board of Aldermen because they needed to,
An allocation transfer.
yeah, it wasn't, they needed to do an allocation transfer to
Right.
Cover a significant portion of it.
White fence is terrible.
Well, Peter was involved with the aesthetics.
Well, Melissa.
Okay, so we don't need.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But speaking of open space funds, I asked at the last organizational meeting if you had any questions for our open space, and you asked if Steve Johnson could be here at tonight's meeting. So Steve is here at tonight's meeting. Again, I think there's only one line item, but he's happy to give a report on what he's done over the course of the last year.
Where would that line item be?
Well, it was not included
Right.
in the agenda, because I think the agenda was put out prior to the mayor's budget being completed. But it does appear on page
34,
34.
maybe,
4162.
4162.
I think it's 4162, page 34.
That's a good position.
Page 34 of the budget.
Right.
And this is the second, again, there's no new net positions. But this is one of the positions that we've been able to supplant. This, along with the city accountant, are the two new positions for this year. And I don't know if you, yeah, Steve, do you want to? Sure. Again, Mr. Chairman, through you, would this be an appropriate time to do it?
Absolutely.
You're talking about open space, so I.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think well, I think
I don't see that 4162 in there.
It's on page 30.
Page 34.
No, but I mean,
It's not on the agenda.
It's not on any agenda.
It's not, that's, at the last meeting I asked it, because it wasn't on the agenda, if you had any questions about open space.
Right, okay.
And you asked if we can give a little readout tonight.
No, that's appropriate. I mean, you know, that we get it in somehow.
I think these were published before this budget came out.
Right.
But over the course of the last year, I was mentioning that we had over $20 million in new grants that came into the city. The vast majority of it, touching concern, land and open space. Some of them, like the grant through the NRCS, which is a division of the Department of Agriculture. The city got exclusively from Steve Johnson's work. It's about a $1.5 million grant that goes directly into either open space fund or another fund that we choose to allocate it towards. And that particular grant is to deed restrict properties to make them open space, existing city properties or private properties or land trust properties. And these properties are almost exclusively marshlands. So you couldn't build on them, you couldn't do anything. These are properties along, for example, the Captain Meadow Creek. That's just swampy wetlands with phragmites growing in and out of them. Couldn't really be developed in any way, shape, or form. In exchange for the deed restriction, the federal government, the Department of Agriculture, will give us funding up to $1.5 billion.
We estimated at 1.7, and that's inclusive of the cost for appraisals, surveys, as well as their planned restoration work that they would do on these properties. The whole goal of the program is to develop healthier coastal resilience and using natural systems. So these were properties that can serve that function and benefit the city, both not only from a resiliency standpoint, but from an economic standpoint. So, and there was also some properties over in the Silver Sands Great Creek Marsh area, but the vast majority in the Captain Meadow Creek area.
So what would the other responsibilities of this position be?
Well, the other responsibilities is working as an example this last year very closely with the mayor's office on applying and getting the STEEP grant to replace the Beaver Brook Boardwalk. That was an obligation that the city had to rebuild that, working with Public Works and Engineering to actually get that implemented is another key. That was $500,000 in addition to a $45,000 community development block grant as part of that project as well. Working closely with Public Works, part of it I think is also looking at the open spaces that we do have, these public open spaces, and how can we improve them for the public benefit. So working with Chris Saley in Public Works and the Public Works staff. This summer we had Public Works go up for a couple of different weekends and clear out some trails, make it much more accessible and safer. Removed a lot of hazard trees up there. So that was a great, I think, example of a collaborative step. And there's other project areas that we can do. We've got a lot of gems throughout the city that, quite honestly, just need a little TLC. And part of it is also looking at what are the funding mechanisms to help make that happen. So working with Mr. Iraducci here, we actually created an assessment of the different open space funds, identified what those funds are, what the restrictions are, and getting a handle on that. So we have some options to look forward and how we're going to manage these properties. And also looking for opportunities not only to be better stewards of these properties, but, you know, be in a position when the opportunity arises to look at key acquisitions in the future as well. Part of this, and a lot of my focus, is developing an inventory of these properties. There's approximately 3,175 acres of undeveloped properties owned by the city, land trust, Milford Land Trust, the state, federal, or deed restricted privately owned properties that were development set-asides. So this, you know, we've got a large umbrella, about 635 properties. And, you know, so we have to prioritize what we're going to do. We're also going to be able to, leveraging these, will also help benefit the community rating system for flood insurance by protecting some of these properties along the shoreline. That would help some of the point values that the mayor's goal is to help reduce the flood insurance rate for homeowners. So it's a variety of different facets.
Do you see any other, I'm sorry, Brian, you, but do you see any other administrative support, any other support for this position that's going to be required?
Not at the moment. I think I've been fortunate in that a number of the different departments that I've worked with have been very supportive. So I don't foresee, you know, all of a sudden needing, okay, I need an assistant. You know, it'd be a nice problem to have down the road, but I think there's a number of things that we can continue to do and sustain some of the progress that we've done over the last 2 years. So.
Thank
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, the open space fund, what's the balance in there, do you know?
There's like 5 different open space funds. Some of them have like $6. I think the one that has probably, I think if you add them all up together, and there's different mechanisms for tapping those funds. Some of them require planning and zoning approval, then Board of Aldermen approval. Some require the conservation to approve it, then the Board of Aldermen to approve it. Some require the mayor to approve it. I think if you add them all up, it's a little over $1 million. Some of those can only be used, the majority can only be used for acquisition of properties. Some of them can also be used for the maintenance of property. I think actually only one, the planning and zoning one. But the vast majority of those open space funds can only be used for property acquisition.
Currently, you're paid under you financed at a 50,000 grant now, right?
Yep.
Well, if I'm paid through the open space fund that's funded through the fees in lieu of.
Through the planning and zoning
department.
That's the planning and zoning account, right?
It's funded through fees in lieu of open space that come from
Developers and builders
right.
that subdivide their properties.
But that has a balance of itself, right?
That has a balance
of what?
Of roughly in the $200,000 range, and
that increases every year. That has money coming every year.
Yeah, there's money every year coming into that fund, but it's not. You know, I've said to the Board of Aldermen, it's not enough to sustain Steve's position, you know, for the long term.
Well, that's my question too. What is the long term in this type of position? Unending?
In terms of the goals, or in terms of the funding?
Funding, yeah.
Last year, this board recommended that I be part of the budget, and that wasn't approved through the Board of Aldermen. This year, it is recommended that I be part of the budget, and you know, my goal is to continue to help bring the proper value to make, even though the grants that I've earned haven't paid my salary directly, they've more than offset in terms of establishing what the value of this position can be and working with different departments, help leverage what they're looking to accomplish as well.
And one of the things that I get the most value out of is something that Steve has not talked about, is the citizen engagement not just the seminars that he does, but the volunteer projects that he helps organize with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, and making sure that the citizens are engaged, because part of the best part about being in Milford is the fact that the community does come together and they rally behind some of the projects when they're given the opportunity.
No, thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
4811 Borough of Woodmont.
$88.
So I don't really need to go into my normal spiel about what the borough is. You all know what the borough is. For the record, we actually did request, how much was it, Kip? It says we requested 220, we actually requested 243. When the city of Milford gets hit, we're not immune to snowfall in Woodmont. And what we have been doing for the last 3 or 4 years is we defer all of our paving projects, our major public works projects, to the spring to see how much money we have left over. Because the last 3 years, we've gone over. We have basically 200 hours of plowing and salt and sand built into our budget. Needless to say, what was it last year, 73?
Yeah, I mean, as an overview, we're basically the pay-as-you-go Public Works Department for Milford for that section of Milford. And so we're sort of hit with the exact same issues that the main Public Works Department has hit here. Years ago, we had some reserves that we were using for some longer-term projects. Those reserves are gone, so basically what we have is trying to figure out how we manage lighting, snow plowing, sort of basic street maintenance on the $220,000 grant that's been for the last 2 years. And the problem is that it's hard to plan when Mother Nature decides to dump major snows on you, because then you basically get a good portion of your budget gets wiped out because it's not a fixed cost. It's going to fluctuate based on the additional snow plowing over our standard amount.
Quick question. Did I hear right? I didn't see it myself, but was there some additional state money that came out for, in the form of town road aid for snow removal?
We're applying for FEMA for this year. I don't think that FEMA has awarded anything, but we had to get all of our information up to the state DEMIS, and they're going to make an application to the federal government. They didn't necessarily deem it a reimbursable event for this year yet.
Okay, so did you do this proactively, or was there some sort of notice that you received on it? Because I didn't receive any note. In the past, like whatever it was, I think it was 2009 or 11, I was notified that we were able to apply for it. So how was yours?
I think that...
And did we miss the deadline?
No, I think at this point they're still researching or analyzing whether we meet the threshold in order to get declared a disaster. I don't think they've even declared that. I think once they do that, they will circle back to the towns and municipalities for those numbers, but I'll have our Public Works Department look into that to make sure that...
Yeah, because if there was, I mean, I'd be more than happy to fill the paperwork out. I've done it in the past a couple of times, so, but I was just unaware of, I wasn't notified, so.
So the big picture is that we used to historically do some, the major costs are paving, snow plowing, and lighting. We used to do paving in the fall when we could afford to do it, and then we got the snow, and then we would be able to dip into some reserves to do more paving in the spring if we had reserves in a given year. What's happened over the last 3 or 4 years when we sort of been pay-as-you-go, we basically deferred any of the paving work that would be done to the spring to to see if frankly if we had any additional money left in the budget to allow us to do that paving work after the sort of the winter. And the problem that we're facing now is that, you know, we will have some money, probably depending on how the snow finishes up for the spring, but we have been basically pushing off any sort of major paving projects into the future because we really are end up with 25,000 sort of in the spring to do paving, which is like, you know, a short section of road. So
Do you know how many streets you have in them?
We have 6 miles of roadway.
6 miles?
So that's sort of, that's why we've been asking for at least some incremental increase, whether it's 5,000, 10,000 off the sort of the yearly, to try to give us a little bit more money so we could do some paving work. And that's sort of the reason for sort of some incremental increases so it can be built into Milford's budget over time. I know that Public Works is sort of operating on a shoestring for Milford as well, so it's not like, you know, you guys are, everyone's rolling in cash. It's just we're trying to, what we don't want to have happen is we want to at least be able to do some paving. Otherwise, you're going to end up, you know, 5 or 6 years down the road, and the roads are going to just be in complete mess. But,
The other thing is, and we've been really holding this off, our Public Works contract expired in 2013. And I've been sort of holding off and holding off. I couldn't hold off any longer. We do have a new Public Works contract. It hasn't been increased in 6 years, and so it is an 18% increase in our base.
it's basically an initial $8,000.
It's about 3% of your base.
But
But I've got that here. I don't know if anybody, I didn't make copies for everybody. I didn't want to kill a tree.
If you've got a copy, we'll take it.
You can, that's yours to keep.
So I guess this is a plea to the extent that, I know the mayor is sort of recommending what we had last year, which is the $220,000, but if there's any way to even bump it $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, we are going to reach it. I mean, it's just sort of going to reach a point where it really is undermining physical condition of the roads.
Is this a bidded contract?
This, historically, we
It
have.
was bidded in the past. We have not bid it. We have not bid it recently. I mean, if you take a look at what we're getting for the amount of money, it really is, it's a good contract. We went out to bid in the past. We had problems with the contractor. We had one contractor for many years back when my dad was on the board, back in the 60s and 70s. And the folks wanted us to go out to bid. We went out to bid, got a new contractor and didn't have really the wherewithal to handle the contract. It was during the blizzard of '78. It was his second year. The borough was an absolute disaster. And he had the contract, I think, for 2 years or 3 years, whatever it was. And we went with this current contract, and we had had it for many, many years. He lives in the borough, and he frankly does a very good job for us.
We would not be adverse if there's a cheaper alternative, but we have been over the years in contact with Public Works and sort of been comparing rates and stuff like that. I think the mayor in our last meeting just mentioned the sidewalk issue where he thought the pricing was different, but I went back.
That was not Jim Malika Jr.
That wasn't. That was Jim Malika Jr. It was not his father who actually.
That was not.
So
I did ask Jimmy about that. He has not done any of the state, because that was on New Haven Avenue and Mary Ellen Drive, I think it was, because I had asked him. He said that was his son's company, which is a separate company.
So we have been trying to make sure that we were getting a value there, and I think that we actually are.
You know what? I can email you electronically the contract so you can take a look at it.
So again, to the extent that there's anything that on the Public Works side for Milford, whether it is increases, it may not be. I was noticing the budget. It was similar numbers been quoted the last couple of years, but there are. I think last year there were some areas where there looked like there were some increases in either wage rates or. If there are other, I don't know, if there are
we
other
also
pools
pay
of
for our
money.
lighting. Our lighting is going up just as your lighting is going up, so all of those things are going up incrementally.
So if there's a
we're dealing with the same
2,000 here or there that we could add, it would be much appreciated. I understand your.
Is that contract with garbage collection?
We used to do that, but it started to get totally outrageous, and we ended up going. What we did was we used to have one additional rubbish pickup, and we're talking about We cut that out probably 25 years ago, because it just, the dumping and everything just got too expensive. That was one of the borough luxuries, was that additional, the last Saturday of the month, we would do the rubbish collection. And we had to cut that out a number of years ago. And, you know, we get paid as much as you guys get paid.
Anything further? Thank you for coming out.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Fire Department 4320. Which 51? Welcome, how are you? I didn't think that, it's been a while. We're both a little older, yeah.
So speaking of older, thank you, Chief Guido, the time Chief Dan Lodge was my finance officer. But it's funny that he says 1978, the storm. I was in that firehouse in Woodmont during that storm in '78.
You couldn't get out.
But I was a little younger and I had hair. We couldn't get out. And Steve does a lot of work for the fire department too. Does a great job with the flood gauges. We're looking at some grants and stuff that he does great stuff.
If you'd like to say anything, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we'll just fire questions at you.
Well, last year, this is our second year in here. Last year, you know, we said, hold the line, and we said, we're going to do it, and we'll proud to say we did it. This year, he said, you know, no more than 3%, and I think we went 2.999 million. So we're in the game. Although, having said that, you'll see, and you did see that, most of the raises, the increases in our budget is contractual on wages. That's where it all is. I wrote some notes quickly. I think we're like 300. Our total increase from last year would be like $345,000, but 270 of it is just the wages, the contractual that we had no control over. So, you know, conducting that, we got maybe a $74,000 increase in that overall. And if there's anything we can answer,
Sure, Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Yes, looking through the budget totally, electricity and heating fuel, for example, in building maintenance went down. Look at 69. 69, page 69. Got the wrong one. Out the way.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
52. Oh, you live in the fire department?
No, the building maintenance, heating service.
for the fire department?
No, there was just their building maintenance. Their heating fuel went down 16,000. The electricity went down 45,000. And I wonder why you're going up. I mean, there's something being saved one place and we're going up in cost in another place. So that's what I'm trying to get at here. There's a couple of other departments I'm seeing the same thing. So my maintenance people are doing a better job than everybody else will.
I don't want to say it's an excuse. We had an issue with the new firehouse that was built, and that was before our administration. And apparently the heat system in the new firehouse is electric.
And there is present ongoing litigation, so if you want to get too much involved, maybe go into executive session.
Yeah, I was going to say that, I can't.
So it's involved with, okay, there's a definite reason for this.
There's a reason.
Normally it wouldn't be a problem.
For the new firehouse, actually, the fire department, also, the hope is for the future, the Siemens Lane property, we are going to acquire from the U.S. U.S. Army. That is supposedly right around the corner. That is gonna be another expense, which hopefully we're gonna find some money to pay for. Probably this budget doesn't even come close to covering that. But if we're gonna take on that responsibility, when we start using it, we're going to need some regional funding, regional grants, state grants, because that's a pretty big facility.
Is that where you're gonna store equipment and all that? Is that what it was?
We do.
No, with the new, if you acquire that, when you do acquire it?
Yeah, and that will be, it's gonna be like a civil preparedness building. It'll be just supplies or anything that we need to do with civil preparedness and storm-related incidents, stockpiling of equipment and supplies. And that could be a point of distribution if people need to come in and grab anything from a flood or.
Where are they now, civil preparedness equipment?
Well, we have that budget next, and.
Oh, that's a separate budget.
That's a separate budget,
Yes,
and we'll discuss that next. That essentially stayed the same, but the mayor's correct. That one, you'll see some increases in that as we take ownership of that building.
Would that mean more personnel too as well?
No,
No?
just maintenance. Maintenance, updating, and electric and gas.
Okay, that was my main item there. It's special equipment servicing, 4749, account 4749, that jumps 14,000.
That's going to be, that's on our contract.
That's the, historically, it's been short. Those are all the things, the contracts we put for elevator maintenance, and we've been begging and borrowing and stealing from where we could to make our obligations in that account for the last couple of years. So we went for the increase so that it would be properly funded. It's still probably short based on our estimates, but we're just trying to save it a little bit.
And like your first aid supplies, that jumped, yeah, 9,000.
Yes, definitely. The cost of the supplies, but we've been much busier.
In a new arrangement with Milford Hospital too, right? And Milford Hospital had been giving us a lot of, I don't know if that's also something we should probably.
They were buffering a lot of our usage.
Oh, all right.
But then we've kind of increased our paramedic role in our usage of advanced life support stuff. And so they've kind of pulled back a little bit on some of the supplies. Those are the expensive supplies.
Okay. Just as you remember, last January 1st, or a year ago, January 1st, 2014, we started billing for our paramedic services.
Right.
You know, we've gotten into the six-figure range in terms of collections, but we're still hoping to increase that significantly. We're still trying to work out a better arrangement with AMR. At the same time, or contemporaneous, we're actually looking to get not just the ability to bill for our paramedic services, we are at least looking to be able to control our own destiny for our transportation, for our basic life support, and the transport for ambulances, not just from the medical scenes, but from hospital to hospital or pediatrician's office to hospital.
Which reminds me,
generate some revenue through that.
The fire rescue truck, what does that actually do? They don't transport anybody, right?
It is a certified licensed ambulance.
But you never use it really, do
We
you?
do on occasion.
On occasion?
The relationship that we have with American Medical Response prohibits us from doing it on a primary basis, but in a backup fashion if they're late, and they do cover all the way to Guilford.
Oh,
So
I get you.
quite often they don't have an ambulance in town, so we will provide the
And
service.
that's the avenue that the mayor's talking about, where we're trying to step up and do more of that, and take more of an active role.
Because that is some significant revenue that could be generated. I've mentioned in the past that Brantford does their own BLS and transport, and they generate $3 million a year in revenue, and they're a town half to a third the size of Milford. So it's something that we're in the process. Dan has spent a lot of time on it. Captain Wakes Norris has spent a lot of time on it. Chief Ito has spent a lot of time trying to secure us through the Department of Public Health the actual license. We have filed petitions through DPH. We have presented a brand new 5-inch thick EMS plan that could choke a horse with all of our protocols and the petition list those ways that the Milford Rescue would do a better job than what we have existing through the private ambulance company. And we're looking to, one, improve public safety as well as generate revenue for the city.
Just a question on the, I see on the life packs here that the department didn't ask for anything, but I see that in the mayor's budget, there's 40,000, so.
Well, when we were in there, we were discussing the plan and the EMS plan, and in fact, it is close to 40,000 just for one, we need three.
Okay.
Because they're older. So we got the one, and we're hoping that when we do generate some of this money, that we can tap into that money as a startup and get, the two additional ones that we need. But that was in discussions during that. So as we're making some of the revenue, we need to tap into it also to buy some supplies.
So to provide the paramedic service, we have roughly, well, we have 9 and we have a spare, so we have 10 of those EKG units. And so go back to the other question about the special equipment servicing in the 4749. One of the expenses in there is the service agreement to keep those things calibrated so that we don't accidentally shock somebody with like a gazillion volts of electricity. So we have to maintain those, and that's one of the things where I know that we're still going to be short in our contract there. But by buying this life pack, hopefully that will take one off of the maintenance agreement and put it on warranty for a couple of years, and then we'll be able to make up with it.
Milford is a heart-safe community, so we're designated as having a pretty good rescue rate.
We still maintain a what do you call it?
The ISO rating.
Yeah.
The ISO?
Yeah, ISO rating, right.
Yes.
Still
So
there.
every 10 years it gets.
Is that what it is?
looked at. It's,
Okay. How many cities have that, do you know?
Less than 1/2%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nationwide.
Is
under
class
50.
1.
Class 1, that's it.
And we just got reevaluated, I think, a year ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Just when I got in.
In Connecticut, it's only Milford and Hartford, and I believe we're
That's
the
what I
only two
thought,
in
yeah.
the Northeast.
There are 3 of us.
And Hartford's having some issues with the fire.
Hartford and us, and they're less than 50 nationwide.
That's it, okay.
Less than nationwide.
It's quite an honor, frankly.
So we're gonna be able to charge for the ambulance service like AMR is now?
Right. Right now, we're actually charging for, we just really got it started, for the paramedic service.
Okay.
So when our paramedic arrives on scene, provides care, and then continues that care along to the hospital, we can bill the patient. Or ask their insurance or pay.
Bill their insurance.
Who supports that? I mean, you have to have some sort of support administrative, right, for that billing and that insurance part of
It
it?
goes back into that 4749 account again. Some of our programs, it's a lot of computer-based, so we do contract with a billing company that kind of, we went out to bid for. They kind of take a percentage to provide the service, and then the computer programs intermingle, and, if the service
The more
needs to
they
maintain the computer.
the more they go after, the more bill they, so they work for us.
Yeah, right.
They're incentivized.
So they do all the billing, so any questions come from the insurance companies, they answer the
They
questions
answer
for
the
them.
phone.
And they have the backup from you to,
Yes.
Us and the mayor.
because they're looking for paper too, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
It's mostly electronic, honestly. It's mostly electronic.
Yeah, right.
for the most part.
What was the EMS equipment you guys were looking for?
Well, there's a few nuggets. One thing is, the equipment in general is expensive and costs more and more every year. Becomes more and more sophisticated. But one thing that we were looking for, but I don't think we were able to acquire in the budget, was a self-lifting stretcher. It costs, what was it, $35,000 for the stretcher, and a loading system for the ambulance. Wow. But it would, one back injury, it saves you. And if you look at departments like Branford or ambulance services that provide that patient transportation, back injuries is a plague. So maintaining a healthy workforce to do all that probably saves dividends on the healthcare side and the workers' comp.
We have licenses for 3 ambulances in Milford, and we want to make sure that those ambulances are ready to go when and if we do secure this additional license from the State Department of Public Health through a grant that we got for $200,000. We're going to be able to replace one of the existing, supplant or replace one of the existing ambulances.
Well, actually, no, you're right, it's in addition to.
And, yeah, because these three are still being serviced, and it will have that lift system in it. So it'll come with it.
Oh, it'll come with
This one will be, yeah.
So we're putting the bid specs out right now, or the fire department's putting the bid specs out right now for that new ambulance that we got through a grant.
So in addition, I think the question might have been the EMS equipment we were looking for. I think we were looking to get the life pack out of the EMS
Oh,
equipment.
right.
That's
That's
bring it
right.
out to make it more.
Pretty well done. Good job, thank you.
Anyone further? Okay, we have a few more departments. 4331, civil preparedness, page 58.
I'm gonna say essentially that one might have even stayed the same, went up a little bit. This is the one where you will see some increases in the electric and gas and other supplies. Once again, we take ownership of that Siemens landfill. But this is pretty much the same.
We did we reached out to UI and got a historical energy usage for that building, so we have a pretty good idea of how much it would cost to run. We got it from when it was in operation, so we know what it is at peak, and we got it when it was when they downsized it, so to speak. So obviously it goes up in the winter time and down in the
Yeah. Yeah, I had nothing in this area.
Are you still working with the homeless shelter on emergency cold weather shelters?
Yes, we do, and in fact, if there's, money comes out of there, some food, there was some people that, say, trying not to turn away, but this shelter was full of them, and we put them up in a hotel, and we pay for it out of this.
Anyone further? Okay. Joe Seaman, 5805.
I heard you
Yeah.
mention it.
Yeah.
I have a meeting Thursday. It's kind of a circus, it's ongoing, we go to these meetings and they have discussions, and some people say, well, we'll look into that and this, and nothing gets done, it just keeps going. CMAC was started in the 70s. Vitamans, right, all the towns, Vitamans and selecting all the towns, so, it's just an older system, it was, just its wiring, and I never kept up with the technology, and that's why it's in trouble today. And a lot of the cities are wising up, and they don't want to give the $95,000 to this, that could be better used at home. And we're doing that right now, investigating that, seeing if there are options for us. It's basically a patch line to a hospital. Our mechs in the field can talk to New Haven or Bridgeport, and it goes through this agency, but there's other ways out there, that
You can get around.
we can get around it, and we're investigating that. One of the downsides of pulling out was discussion about a pension for the dispatchers that currently work there. So if we pull out, is there an obligation, the city of Milford needs to give X amount of dollars for the pension obligation, but we don't have answers to that. But as we stay and other communities leave, it certainly costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
We're working it.
How many communities have left? A lot.
Yeah. Meriden, Shelton, and so, yeah.
We in kind of the same group we're in with the other regional authority.
They joined the Valley.
There's a Valley one, Ben's in.
Sheldon did?
Yes, and we are in discussions with Bridgeport, and this is New Haven-based, and there's a Bridgeport one, southwest, and we're discussing maybe the cost for us to be a member there.
But if you notice, most of your doctors here in Milford, for example, they're all connected to New Haven. Not a lot of them go to Bridgeport.
This would allow us to patch into any hospital in the state.
Oh,
So it's mostly also for mass casualty situations, yeah, not mostly, but that's another component of it. That they will bring in the necessary resources in mass casualty situation, as well as the thing that they do on a day-to-day basis is that connection between the first responder and the hospitals, or the ambulance in the hospitals.
How CMED started and its primary role is we are mandated as a paramedics or as an EMS provider. We have to have a way to converse with doctors at the hospital. Our sponsor hospital is Milford Hospital. So I'm out in the field and I need to do a procedure on a patient. I have to get approval or run something by the doctor or be able to communicate with him otherwise. So that's what CMED's primary role is. There's just, with technology and things, there's so many other ways that you can do that. And then the other thing is coordination of which patients are going to which hospital at what time. I mean, it's...
IBM has a beautiful ad about that.
Yeah. So most of the fire chiefs that are involved in it feel as though they all pay a lot of money for their own CAD, their own communication systems, that should be able to do that on their own.
Right.
So what are we doing there? And so the problem with that pension thing is the last meeting I went to, they said like the last person holding the bag might be the person who's stuck. So everybody's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And so now they're looking for, they're getting legal opinions on things, and so there's just no answers. It's month to month. But should it go month to month for the entire 12 months?
Thank you.
Okay, terrific.
Lighting hydrants and water, I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
62, yeah.
Yep, that's, I would say that's just paying it off.
Any questions on that? If not, good to see you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask you one question. Avalon is doing this, it's doing it tonight, in fact. And when they had that big fire down in New Jersey, that fire went out of control because they couldn't get the fire trucks in the back of the complex. That was one of the main reasons. And then they had to use the waterfront to use fireboats and everything, try to think. They couldn't even, maybe 1/3 of the place burnt down. And now we're dealing with this thing with Avalon. Do we, like, when you sign off, I'm not questioning you.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't believe all the codes and ordinances address that. I don't believe you need to have a full radius around a structure.
Wow.
For fire apparatus.
Wow.
It might even be in a state statute for fire
Yeah,
marshals.
I wanted you, when you were coming, I just was curious how that got away.
Shoot an email or something.
That plan review process of the fire department access when they first give us a site plan.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of stuff that impacts that, such as like Avalon Bay here in Milford, the cockloft there is sprinkler, I believe.
Yeah, right.
So that gives you a lot of comfort zone.
That one guy said in the hearing, I look at, the sprinklers are not up on the roof, they're only in the lower level.
In Milford they are.
So the whole top would go above, but there's firewalls in between those, aren't there now?
But, you know, contractors go in, are there any contractors here?
Yeah.
Contractors go in and, you know, they do their mechanicals, electric, and if they breach those separations, it's just a small separation, that's why there's fire stops.
Okay.
And it's there when we go up and inspect it, it's coated, you look at the openings and make sure it's all sealed. But, you know, a year or two down the road, another contractor's in here, may not do that.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public Works, 4420.
She's still
Page
there?
63.
Still there?
Here. Good evening, everybody.
Thanks for the opportunity to come before you to speak. Just give you a quick overview. We're presently involved in a number of projects within the city. And with the mayor's support, we're actually going to be attacking 4 drainage projects that were recommended for the 2 grant money, and then 1 for our bonded money. They are Bayview, Morningside, Gulf Beach, Breakwaters, Golden Point Road, and Point Beach Drive. We're also, through bonded money, the mayor and the alderman authorized $2.2 million to do a dredging project that will start up at Eisenhower Park. and work hopefully all the way down. Hopefully we don't run out of money and get all the way down to the waterfall behind Stonebridge. And with Steve Johnson's help and Mary Rose Polero from Inland Wetlands, we're going to try to do again a lot of the work in-house. And then some of the work that we need, some of the expertise we need for state approval, we're going to hire a contractor, a design contractor to do that. But we are going to try to change the way we do projects, more of a general contractor model, where Public Works will take a lead and divide projects into smaller incremental events. And hopefully we're going to get better value out of our projects, as opposed to letting a contractor, a general contractor run it, put his vig on it, and everyone else put their margins on it. So we think we have a new way of doing it. Another project we're going to look at is we're going to look into a rain garden or redevelopment of the Margaret Egan Center back area, where, if I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, there's a lot of flooding in that back.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, there used to be a stream back there. In 1935, there's aerials of a stream that went all the way back to the back road. So we're working with DEEP and again the mayor's office, and we're going to do something similar to what we did in front, but a true rain garden, which will hopefully give us the opportunity to raise the area that's now flooding and give more passive use, recreational use to that area, and in turn give a filtration component so that water, when rainwater falls or any other water that comes down, it will filter through the soils, and it's a great water quality issue. Again, working with the mayor's office and Steve Johnson, we're also looking at a section of road down at the Silver Sand State Park, and working with the state and trying to alleviate some parking issues that we believe are going to arise because of the new improvements that they're going to do with the state park. And once they do that, they're going to start charging for a fee to park at the state park. Presently it's for free, but at the state park they're going to put concessions and other things. So we believe that when that happens, people will naturally fall over to our area. So we want to have some areas that we can hopefully go after. Jim Cooper's going to talk more about wastewater, but one of the things that we're looking to do, you brought up, and I should have said it when Chief Ito was here, we're in the process of working out some performance contracts and also working with UI. We're anticipating savings in our electric and gas bill by bringing in new, more energy efficient units. We just did one at Fanny Beach. We were trying to do one at Parsons, but we ran out of time. We couldn't take the boilers offline because obviously with the winter season, but we got it in Fanny Beach. That's our first test model. And the way the performance contract works, depending on what we tie in, we can tie in, if we tie in electric and heating, two sources, we can get up to a 50% rebate through the UI. The Fanny Beach project was $124,000, I believe. We got grant money, and then we have, through the savings, we believe, this is what the company said, our energy savings, it will offset the cost, because the UI gives us a 0% loan. So it's no capital outlay for us, and it's cash positive from day one. The first 3 years, 4 years, it's not a huge cash positive, but it really will save a ton of energy over there. The other thing we're going to look for in this building is to more isolation, so that we're going to try to, we're working with another company to do it so that when you come into a room, you will have a wireless component that you'll be able to control the heating and cooling. There's nothing worse. Some of these rooms are extremely warm. I can't say many of them are cold because they're not, but you know, we lose a lot of energy loss in this building just by not being able to control what we're doing. We were hoping to get it done before, like I said, the winter, but that didn't work out. The other thing we're looking at across the board, we just did one of the conference rooms, conference room B, I believe. I always get confused. C. It's the craziest thing in this thing because it's A, C, B, or yeah. So it should, it's backwards. But we renovated it, working with a local contractor to do the flooring, but we went in and did all the walls and the ceiling and fixed it. And the mayor's in the process of looking at some new chairs, and hopefully we're going to bring the chairs up to date.
And we're getting grant money. The Board of Aldermen authorized money, $25,000 for a grant to rehab all these 3 conference rooms. The Board of Education has agreed to give us one of their old
Whiteboards,
one of the ones with the projector on it, smart board. So we'll have a smart board and
yeah. It's old. I don't know the difference between a whiteboard and a smart board. It's a projected component.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the things the mayor was very about, recycling some of the things instead of, they're obsolete for the Board of Ed, but for us, for when people come and want to do a presentation, you can set up with a computer and actually do a demonstration and presentation. Conference rooms, I'm just trying to see Walnut Beach, old equipment, energy projects that we're looking to do are really critical. And we've met with Honeywell, which is a national company, and looking at different projects that we can do. We met with them actually this week, It's really exciting things. I don't want to steal Jim's thunder, but it's part of using the methane that's generated at the plant to actually generate electricity. And then possibly, and this is, they're going to do some initial investigation to see if it makes sense. If it works, then we could actually almost be a regionalized area that we could take other town sludge and do some, generate more electricity. And it's a cost savings for other towns because it's obviously more cost effective for us to take care of the sludge as bringing it to a private vendor. So these are some of the things that we're trying to do as a public works department. And again, any other questions you'd like?
Thank you. Well, let's, I'm gonna open for floor. Well, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, how many unfilled positions do you have right now?
That's always the question I come when I
Well,
come.
a few weeks ago, you told us you had all these unfilled
We
positions.
just filled 2 positions, 2 truck driver, tree equipment operators.
Okay.
Mr. Cooper, would you like to make your announcement? I don't want to steal your thunder.
I heard I was gonna announce, we are gonna have 3 open positions in wastewater coming up shortly. 1 pump station mechanic, 1 plant mechanic, and 1 superintendent as of the 27th of February.
Retirements?
Yes.
He's one of them.
That's not allowed.
And how long have you been with the city?
I'll be 3 days short of 28 years.
So presently I'm sorry, go ahead.
Got that,
Thank you for the service.
Yeah, thank you.
2 hurricanes and a blizzard ages you too, but a couple extra years on it.
Presently, we have 1 sanitation, there was a promotion in the sanitation, and the way it works, when someone leaves, it gets in-house advertised, usually a lower person promotes, and then we have to fill, so there's always a time drag with that. We have 2 maintainers that are gonna do, and we have 3 other people in building maintenance that will be, or I'm sorry, 2 other people in building maintenance that will be retiring in the next 4 months. So we seem to constantly just have that. We have a decent amount of turnover, which is actually a good thing. I mean, people have put in a long time and worked many years with the city, and now they want to enjoy the retirement, which is good.
Chris, do you have to advertise outside for these?
Normally, how it works is the way the contract works is we have to advertise in-house if there is a capable candidate. And then if that's the case, we try to hire within, but there are times, just like recently, the outside maintainers, which are grass cutters, lawn mowers, snow shovelers, that kind of thing. Those are the 2 positions. We had 2 positions opened. We advertised locally, and I believe it was the Milford Mirror, the bulletin. So it was a very local, concise thing. We had 90 applications for that. Oh, it's amazing. Wow. The city of Milford is a great employer to work for. They offer, I think, very comparable wages, great benefits. They offer a lot of promise and a lot of promotion for people who want to put the effort in. And, you know, it's a really a good company to work for. I tell my staff all the time.
It's also a little dependent on union contract, like my position can go right to the outside, you have to inside first.
We're promoting inside and outside at the same time with Jim's position, and his position is going to close, I think, the 27th. So.
Okay, well, let's go, we're just getting started here. So we'll do Public Works Offices 4420. I think it's pretty straightforward, and it looks like we requested an assistant that's not being funded. Anybody have anything on Public Works? Highway Parks Division, 4421 on page 65.
Just a couple of them down the line, Brian.
Please.
4515, road and drain maintenance. It's a reduction of 10 grand in that area. Why would that be?
We have, the mayor has put in $3.5 million worth of bonded money.
Oh, that's right.
So a couple of years ago, most of it we actually got covered by grants, 5 different grants that were actually a total of $5 million. So we got $5 million worth of grant funds to do drainage and shoreline resiliency projects through CDBG. And in addition to that, 2 Februaries ago, we did bond, your board and the Board of Aldermen did bond for drainage improvements. So some of the capital projects that we have supplanted this budget to a degree. This is more maintenance, the upkeep, as opposed to new projects. But as we do new projects, this this budget could be mitigated a little bit as well.
Mhm. What do we do, substitute sand for salt in that 45, 33, and 34?
We actually, I'm not sure if the board's aware, but this is the first year, we had a stockpile from last year, a little sand and salt mix. We had about 700 yards. So that was stockpiled in an isolation, but we brought in what we call a molasses salt. This is the first year. We've done about, I think about 1,700 tons as year to date. It's been a very challenging winter because normally you get a snowstorm and you can throw a little salt down and the next day the sun comes out and melts. And we haven't had that melt. So we've been using definitely a lot of product. And it's not a cheap product, but the two things, most towns in the area are getting away from a salt sand mix. We had our salt sand mix as a backup because we've struggled to get enough of the materials, and I think across the whole state it's been the same area trying to get it from Gateway. So we've had a backup. Next year we anticipate, instead of doing this, 300 or 400 tons at a time, we'll have enough capacity. We're just going to get like 2,000 tons and have them stockpiled so we don't have to worry about it. But it does a number of things. It stops putting sand in our catch basins and our streets, and it won't end next year because obviously we're using some sand and salt, but we believe within 3 or 4 years it will reduce the amount of vacuum that we'll have to do in all our catch basins. It will reduce some of the sweeping that we have to do. The state DEEP is actually increasing the regulatory issues that we need to do in regards to vacuuming and street sweeping. So even though we're going to have less to do, they're going to expand our scope. So we're going to have more requirements that we're going to have to be doing. And they're still working that out at the state level, so there's some concern.
It's called the MS4, the stormwater bill that's going through the legislature at this point. And Milford, I mean, we do have a pretty active program in terms of cleaning out our catch basins and our storm drains. But we just, you may know, 2 years ago, purchased a brand new backhaul truck. But the most that backhaul truck can do, if it's vacuuming and sucking, or sucking and jetting, it can do 18 catch basins a day, flat out. If it's just vacuum, I guess you can do like up to 30. But we have over 7,500 catch basins, and that doesn't even include the state ones. That's just municipal catch basins. So if you do the math, we have a big project, and any of these new regulations that come down the pike are going to be significant for us.
And it's interesting, just driving around the city sometimes, especially in the fall, it's amazing how many people, or even when they cut grass, blow their grass right in their face. It's like, so we have our work to do to try to educate the citizens of Milford and try to explain what they need to do. And it's all good stuff because I think we have a lot of work, but I think there's a lot of opportunities to make a big difference in the town.
Do you guys pre-treat for snow?
Yes, we do. This was the first year we've done it, and we definitely made a few mistakes. And as the mayor was talking about, I think Mr. Vanessa brought up, the initial blizzard that we were supposed to get, it was supposed to be anywhere between 20 and 38 inches. It was crazy numbers. So we mobilized a fleet of contractors to come in, and at that point we had to guarantee a certain amount of hours, and then the storm never materialized. And we anticipated with the size of that storm that we would qualify for disaster money. So right now the state's reviewing that, but it's probably less than a 50-50 mix that we're going to get funded on that. But it was a poor weather forecast. We budgeted appropriately and we had the right resources, but we didn't need all those resources. So it was a little frustrating. But I guess the old adage is it's better to be prepared and not have to use it than not be prepared and have to use it. Yeah, so.
Anyone on highway parks? 4423, building maintenance, page 69.
This is my favorite one.
It's all yours, Joe.
Huh? You did a good job. Look at the heating fuel. Look at this. The electricity went down 45,000.
Hopefully that account is going to keep going down in about another year and a half. This building, City Hall, the Tolson building, Harborside, the Senior Center, they're all going to be part of a microgrid, and that's going to cut our electricity costs way down.
The new one on Old-Gate Lane, not Old-Gate Lane, the Siemens Lane building, it's a National Guard building, right, or whatever it is.
It was an Army facility,
yeah.
And when the BRAC Commission, the Base Realignment Commission, took that down, they went to the municipality and said you could have it for free. And we said, great, but they made us specify, and this goes back 5, 6 years, 7 years, exactly what we wanted it for. And it had to be for one of the reasons that they will give it to us for free. If we said we wanted it for free because we want to turn it into a nightclub or a recreation center, they wouldn't permit it. They had priority projects that they would allow us to acquire it for free. We could have basically used it for anything if we wanted to pay fair market value for it, but in order to get it for free, we had to specify that we would use it only for emergency preparedness. And so it's going to be deed restricted in perpetuity for emergency preparedness reasons. To be honest with you, until we can get some grant funding to repurpose that facility and run that facility, I don't want to take it on. Right now, the Army, through the goodness of their heart, they're letting us store our equipment there.
Oh, yeah.
They're letting us use it for free. Once we actually take ownership of it, we're going to have to pay the utilities. And it's something that we want to delay as much as possible.
Oh, yeah.
At some point, it's going to come to a head, and the Army's going to say, sign on the dotted line, the property is yours, but the longer we can have it without having to pay the utilities, the better.
Can we do the solar panels like you plan in other places here now? Would that work or no?
There's a couple buildings that we got state incentives to do it.
Right.
One of the things, if you're going to do a rooftop solar project, the thing that they look for first is that the roof is less than 5 years old. So that's why we're moving forward with the library roof.
Right.
We also got funding to do it at a sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
So we haven't finalized those projects, but we got initial authorization that we would get this incentive money.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything further on your opinions?
Yeah.
Yes, Joe.
I see water is going up by 18,000.
Yeah. And the Regional Water Authority has increased the rates. I don't know if that's the entire reason, but.
I know that we've used a tremendous amount of water on the green this past year. I shouldn't say tremendous, but an increase, and even at the fields at Eisenhower.
So this is the total city budget for water then?
It should be, yes.
Exclusive of the fire hydrants.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's.
Which is a big ticket item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Engineering, 724424.
Just to give you an example of one of the things that we're doing, the engineering department, our administrative assistant down at Beverly Hayes brought up the idea. Presently, there's two separate sides. There's the engineering department's on two separate sides of the building. We were talking about trying to consolidate. One of the things we're looking to do is actually get into the new age of scanning and digitalizing all the plans that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So this winter's been good because there's been a lot of poor weather, so our staff has been doing that. We've been going through old files and new files and scanning things that we need and actually consolidating. And I think I mentioned that we're going to reduce the size of the engineering department by about 1,500 square feet, which is going to open up room for other uses in the Parsons. And hopefully we're going to do that across a lot of the other offices and try to gain efficiencies that way. We also have one of the engineering techs. We're going to do a lot more. Our goal is to do a lot more in-house inspections. We have a Naugatuck drainage project that's been the mayor would know, probably a 6 or 7 year project, and it's coming to fruition now in regards to, but they need a full-time inspector, so we're going to try to do that in-house. Normally they would go out and bid that out to a consulting company, and it could cost up to $150,000, so we think we can do it. It's going to hopefully, we believe, a 9-month process, and so this person will be ultimately responsible for that and then doing some other things.
The Naugatuck project you're asking about, our Council of Governments, our regional planning, the money that we're using to pay for this Naugatuck drainage project is coming through the Urban Act money that's funneled through the Council of Governments. So that's one example of where that money goes. Another example is back maybe 9-10 years ago, the Gulf Street Bridge was redone. That's another example. one project that you may want to know about, because it's coming down the pike, separate and distinct from anything else we've been talking about, but still a public works project. That's not true. Public Works is going to be working with the DOT. The DOT is doing exclusively on their own is the Flax Mill Bridge project. You know
Oh, that thing, yeah.
Is that where you live?
Yeah, right, I'm around the corner from
So there's actually, I think, going to be some outreach happening with the DOT sometime in the next week to make sure that the residents in that area are engaged. And actually, I think that McKell also has
right.
Is that the stone bridge going over the river? or-
Yeah, the stone bridge, yeah.
There's actually, I think,
Constantly
two.
flooded.
two very small bridges.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
always flooded.
Yeah, this is,
It's next to the pumping.
One of the reasons that they're constantly flooded, though, is also because of the Wetland River.
Yeah.
Needs to be dredged, especially towards the.
Where's the Turtle Creek thing that's coming up? It's in the paper.
That's over at New Haven Ave.
Where is that?
Where, is it Corso's Deli? Is it Corso's Shopping Center?
No,
It's off of
back a
Pond
little
Point.
ways.
In, what's that, Jim?
Back a little way towards Ogie Lane.
Yeah.
Between Ogie and Palm Point, there's a little tidal brook that goes
Could be a
underneath.
bridge there or something they're
Yeah,
doing?
There's a culvert now, and the DOT is gonna redo it, but we're putting our sewer line through there first.
Oh, God. Never mind.
It's a state project.
Yeah.
That's
Back on there.
I just saw it in the paper with a big meeting here at Conference B.
Any further questions on engineering?
Nope.
Just a quick question. I'm listening that you're going to start trying to do a lot more stuff in-house inspections and that.
That's
Do you
our goal.
see increase in staff that you'll need for that, or is it going to be just a reorganization of who you have?
I think if it grows to the point, we'll see an increase in staff, but I think through efficiencies and just being more, proactive on some of the issues that we need to do, I think we'll be able to do it in-house. An example, by consolidating and not being on two sides of an engineering department, when someone goes to lunch, someone else will be there. Previously, someone had to leave their job and walk over while someone was at lunch to cover or worse, close down the room. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, for us to be a little bit more streamlined.
Thank you.
We're gonna keep you on the floor. You can skip over wastewater for now. Sorry. General garage, 4429. $74.
One of the accounts that you'll notice did go up from last year was the equipment upkeep account. And again, it's less than was requested, probably less than is actually expensed, but more than the previous year. This account has perennially been tapped out mid-year. And while there has been reductions in other accounts to offset this for Public Works and some of the other divisions, this account has been increased from, what was it budgeted last year? 250 to 320.
Right.
That will be a challenge. We got an older fleet. That was one of the reasons we came before you for a budget authorization. Because I think we put another 125, 150 into it. It is a challenge with the fleet we have. It's one of the things I'm working with the mayor's office, and the mayor's been very supportive of trying to access some other grant monies for vehicles, and also, again, trying to streamline what we have. An example that we're looking at as a whole is we have six-wheelers that used to do the vast majority of snow plowing. They're $200,000 pieces of equipment. The issue that we have, a great piece of equipment, but we only use them 3 or 4 months out of the year. Then we use probably 8 or 9 of them, so they sit. And it's like everything else, the worst thing you do for the vehicles, let it sit. So we're trying to kind of blend our fleet, get some smaller vehicles for the smaller roads that we can use 12 months out of the year for snow plowing, but also for cutting grass and drainage projects and masons and things like that. So we're in the process of working with that. And we're also working with the MIS to look at changing. Right now we have 20 routes in the town, so 20 snow plowing routes. We're going to look at trying to change how we snow plow and do more center of the roads with the bigger trucks, and then having smaller trucks leapfrog across the whole city. It's one of the things we're working with, like I said, MIS and Megan and MIS and Jean, and seeing what we can do, but that's for next year. So, there's a lot going on.
was thinking of gas, and not just in your own area, but where the gas is down now, are we in any bidding process at the price we're getting at stations now, or we're boxed in right now?
We put it out to bid in August. Historically, August is the month where you generally get the best rates, but again, the folks who price out gas probably have a pretty sophisticated sense of what they'll get. We'd have to ask, Peter, do you know what the price that was bid on in August per gallon?
I believe it was 30 cents less than what we paid, but here's the caveat. Right now, the price is lower than our bid price was, but we were locked into a certain quantity.
Right.
We thought when we originally got it, we were excited, we were like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And no one in their right mind thought gas prices were going to go where they went.
Right. Anything further for solid waste? 4431? No, 4431, solid waste.
76, yeah.
Here's an area where we were able to reduce a little bit under city waste removal costs. That went down by $70,000.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that showing up on the income side yet? Were we,
One of the reasons why is we're part of a consortium of towns. We renegotiated our tipping fees.
Right.
We went from $65 a ton to $60 a ton. There are some additional costs, but we cut our tipping fees significantly. So that's one of the reasons why we're able to reduce that number.
The other thing that we did through the mayor, with the mayor's support, went through Alderman and changed some of the regs or ordinances in regards to solid waste. Previously, you could come and buy a 2 or 4 month time pass, and everyone could get it. And it was $15 or $30. We increased that to $30 to $60, and we also decreased the amount of weight from 700 pounds to 400 pounds. But to give you an indication, 400 pounds would cost you, if you went just on weight, it would cost you $20. So it's a very good value.
Mm-hmm.
What we've seen is we're going to see how this shakes out for the rest of the year. We've seen a big decline in how many 2 and 4 times a month tickets we've sold. But we believe we're going to see an increase on the revenue side of the daily pass, and also the amount of weight that people they used to get 300 pounds for free. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
so,
Go ahead.
yeah, and this is actually on the general fund revenue side, but the recycling revenue of 75,000, is that a result of cardboard recycling, a single stream?
We have to pay $60 approximately a ton for solid waste. The tipping fee we actually get, we receive $20 a ton for recycling, and we average about Peter, 4,000 or 5,000 tons of recycling a year.
About 5,000. Right around there. And we're very fortunate. Again, everything's timing. The mayor had negotiated. It's a commodity-based product that they had negotiated at the peak. Right now, that commodity is extremely low. Winter Brothers is one of the companies, or the company that we deal with. We bring our product up to Shelton, and right now it's under 5 from what I understand a ton. Yeah, it's a huge difference. So, but it's a commodity. It fluctuates. When it goes up.
Now, I see that, I know that it's more profitable to do this recycling and everything, but I'm seeing more, New York Times had a whole thing about the trash energy situation. Here, it's not as popular, I guess.
No, we do trash energy. That's
yeah, we do, but we want to get away from that, though, if we can. Is that what we're saying? By doing better recycling?
Well, recycling makes sense because as the mayor said, we pay round number $60 just to tip it.
Right.
Now we got to still transport it, which is round numbers $15.5 to transport it, and then we pay to run the transfer station. Our cost per ton is close to $90.
90, okay.
So when we can take that total cost all in, so if we can take that number and instead of paying 90, go and get 20, it's a huge upside. We need to do a better job of educating And I was actually talking with one of my working leaders today in solid waste about, it's a balance, because there is a percentage of people that you just do not recycle. And, I mean, we know who they are, and we need to do a better job of enforcement, educating, and then if it comes down to it, it's one of the things, we're gonna talk with the mayor and the alderman about, is actually having an ordinance that, a more stricter ordinance that we can cite people as a last resort, because it really is, it's good for the environment, it's good for the city financially, and it does make a lot of sense. Recycling is critical, and one of the things, I saw a show recently, it's not even just recycling, some of the towns, areas in the area are doing organic recycling. So it almost goes into a concrete mixer, and it spins it at a high speed, and how it works is it breaks down the plastics, but it throws the organics into a mix. It's really kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And eventually, not now, but eventually, all the towns are gonna be in some part of component. Everything's gonna change, how we do business, not just in Public Works, but in every one of the departments.
I'll give you a quick story. When I was a kid in Boston, I don't know if you had it down here, we had a barrel, about a pit in your backyard. It's all cement with a barrel in it. You threw all your garbage in there, all your bones, everything, cabbage, whatever. Went in there, guy came every other day, picked that thing up. He was the garbage man.
Right.
I went to the pigs.
Just all food products.
Food stuff.
Yeah, no plastic.
No plastic.
There was less plastic in those days too, though, I'm sure.
No, there's just paper.
Yeah.
You couldn't even put paper in it. You had to take a bucket in the house. A slop, that's really what it was. And I think you're gonna see that come back.
Oh, it's gonna be a
York is
form of
doing it
that.
now.
Yeah, it's gonna be a form of that. The way these it looks like a big concrete mixer.
Yeah.
And it goes in, and they throw everything in, and it just shoots it out, it just shreds it almost. It's really cool.
It is, thank you.
Was there any further questions on 4431 solid waste? Thank you for your thorough presentation, appreciate the information.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
All right, back to wastewater.
101.
Last but not least, it may be the last time though. It sounds like.
Not maybe.
The last time we'll be in front of the board. Come back on command performance next year?
Probably not.
Don't leave anything on the field. That's it. This is wastewater 4426. It is a special fund, enterprise fund.
I just want to expand a little bit on what Chris said about the Honeywell people coming out. They were looking predominantly at using the digester and digester gas. So that we kind of kept the digesters going for many years and been using them as digesters where most places have discarded them with the hopes of being able to use that gas for some higher purpose. And we had a study done by Fuss and O'Neill, and they kind of said, we don't think so. But Honeywell's looked at it a little differently and said, well, if we bring in some product, we bring in either sludge, or they were hot on bringing in brewery waste. That was a very good commodity for helping out digesters and getting more out of them. And looking at things that we could charge people to bring to us, and then using our digester to help generate electricity, either through the fuel cell thing is kind of going by the wayside. They're looking more at reciprocating engines or microturbines as opposed to fuel cell. And I think looking at these things it's kind of got to the point now where we either have to say, okay, we're gonna push forward on one of these projects and try and use that digester gas for something, or we've got to shut them off and just use it as a holding tank and dewater the sludge and send it off undigested. Which is just another option of getting rid of the sludge. The digester itself, what we end up recycling from the digester through the plant, purchase on our nitrogen removal, it makes it a little bit more difficult to operate things. So it's kind of got to the point where we got to go one way or the other. We got to step up and sometime in the not too distant future, use that gas for something positive, or stop doing it and just use it as a holding tank and you want to send it off to the incinerator. And there are also a couple projects that Chris has pushed forward. They're looking at putting photovoltaic cells at one or both plants, using some of the open space there to use those. And I don't think that changes our electrical picture a whole lot, but it's still a step forward and something that we can get less expensive electricity from.
Well, you mentioned nitrogen credits, and we're not paying anything out this year. Looks like 2 years in a row.
We are gonna have to pay probably $30,000, but we're gonna manage it through this year's budget. So we're not looking at putting money in the next year's budget for that for us.
Still fairly even keeled, I guess.
And the future of that is the state's gonna kind of pull the profit side out of that. A lot of places have been getting a lot of funds out of that, and has been spending a lot of money to do different things, or not gonna be able to do that anymore. Because what they're saying they're gonna do is they're gonna take the money from the seasoned towns that are paying, and just whatever they pay in, they're going to distribute among the towns that have done better than they have to do. For the last 15 years, the state's been subsidizing, so there's a couple like Stanford, the lady that ran that for many years was kind of the forerunner of all this nitrogen removal and was really on top of it, and she was, she's retired now, but at the time she was to the point of, I think at certain years they generate like $1 million of income off of that. Well, that's gonna come to an end. There's gonna be none of that anywhere. Somebody's gonna, if they're spending, $200,000 in chemicals to knock their nitrogen down, they may only get $10,000 or $15,000 back. So there's not gonna be that big profit side to it. I think in 2018 is the year where they're just gonna take whatever money is generated by the people paying and distribute it evenly among the people that have done better than they had to do. So they're looking at changing that program so the state doesn't have to give you money.
Any further on waste?
That was just the electricity. We're jumping up. No, we're staying flat on that. Yeah, we're staying flat on that. But I was wondering, like, the maintenance, they were going down.
Which maintenance?
Your electricity is 4442, and in the maintenance, on 69, they were getting a reduction in the amount they paid for electricity and all.
Yeah, the mayor negotiated it down a couple of years ago, and it helped us out a lot. But I think until we get some of these other programs going on, either with the photovoltaic or some of the purchase power things that Chris was putting forward, I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. We tend to add things on a fairly routine basis. We had a grocery pump station. It's only a small place, but it's something that, it just seems to be our nature of, adding things and expanding the system that, while we do a lot of things like that place has, probably every energy saving device that they make for that kind of station, it's still something more. So it's as efficient as it can be. And it's a little unusual there. It's a brand new system, so there's only like, at this point, maybe 6 or 8 houses connected. When they get the whole area connected, it'll be a little more efficient. But because it's new, there's not a lot of flow there, so the efficiency is not great.
Oh, I know.
We go around routinely through our stations and put in energy-saving equipment wherever we can, whether it's variable frequency drives on motors or anything we can think of to knock the power consumption down.
Anything further?
There was a couple of things that I know I mentioned to the mayor about this. The president vehicle, large back truck that the mayor recommended against, but I asked if we could possibly put a smaller vehicle in its place, a pickup truck or something, a pump station truck, because we don't have a big fleet of public works. We have about a 20 vehicle fleet, and it's kind of always been, I think if we don't replace 2 a year, we're heading towards a place where we have 18 and 20-year-old vehicles. And sometimes for the big dump trucks and stuff, that works out. They don't get beat up. They're made to take that abuse, but all our stuff is run around in town from station to station, and sewer problem to sewer problem. They're not out on the highway, and it's probably the worst use to put a vehicle through. And to expect a not realistic. And the other thing I talked about was changing one of our positions from a sewer line mechanic to a working leader. I know you said you wanted to discuss that, I don't know that, that is what I know.
We'll continue to talk about it. One of the issues is there's a working leader position, and there needs to be an overtime. There's an overtime issue, whether there's a call at night for a line issue. Normally, there would have to be a supervisor on scene and folks to actually do the work. In this situation, a working leader would be able to accomplish both. So there would be, even though it may be a pay grade step, in the long run, it may be a savings. Is that fair?
I think so. I think just, you know, I hate to get into the people about whatever. We have a person that does an incredible job for us. He stepped up on a lot of things. He almost does this kind of work anyway, you know, when he's the only one that's available to take care of a sewer job, or he ends up taking a couple of people that are usually in charge aren't available. He definitely steps up and does that working leader type work. You know, then to say, well, on your regular day, you're not worth as much, but when we got a problem, you're worth more. I don't know, it doesn't.
So this would be a mechanic wastewater, mechanic sewer line, mechanic collection?
Mechanic sewer line changing to working leader. Sewer line. So the difference is about $2,000 a year. Actually, a little more than that.
Right, well, for the benefits and everything else, but that's okay, we understand the.
As far as the vehicle, I think I'm probably talking about a pickup truck with plow or something like that. We had one in there that we kept probably I think it didn't really show in here, the vehicle we have was in here, the SUV, I think we changed to be a pickup. And my request would be to put a second pickup as opposed to getting rid of the back truck and having nothing.
What's in equipment, 80,000?
Yeah, what's that? That's your top
That's
one, 49.
That's a reserve fund that's for capital projects. Over the course of the year, replacement of pumps and everything else that's not included in this budget. That fund is their fund reserve. It rolls over from year to year. We used it this year to replace the SCADA system, the SCADA system.
I think that might be what that is exactly. You just replace the SCADA. I don't think it's repetitive.
Which account are you talking about?
I think he's at 4998.
4901 their equipment.
The 4998-0650 is the account that is their reserve.
Specific for replacing the SCADA, and it's not a repetitive.
Actually, yeah, it's not a repetitive account.
The SCADA computers are the electronic component that controls both treatment plants and handles all the alarms for all 45 pump stations. And they are computers that were put in when the plant was done over. They're about 8 years old now. They're pretty much standard desktop computers that are pretty high level for us anyway, use, and depending on our alarms on computers that are 8 years old, is probably not where we want to be. And it's been approved to replace. So I don't think.
I think I'll clarify what I know what the mayor's trying to say. That line item there is, it doesn't roll, the whole thing doesn't roll forward. It's part of the operating budget. But if there is a surplus at the end of the year, I am allowed to move that into another maintenance replacement fund balance. Or it's like, the layman's terms, it would be a sinking fund, but it's a restricted fund balance that requires Board of Alderman approval to make an appropriation, and he's used that for various things over the years.
And Peter, that line that you just pointed out, the 4901, would you, before we have the technical session, would you look into that $80,000? Because there was an allocation transfer about 3 months ago, probably right after, or right during, I think that was actually in December, maybe January.
The most recent one?
Yeah. No, there was one like
Last year we did 3 for various projects.
Right, but this one wasn't, this was, like the mayor said, not that long ago. And
Yeah,
it
there
was
was
just specifically for the
SCADA.
SCADA.
For your
to do
computer,
this
was all
year.
the computer
To
software.
do this year though, not next year, to do now, was my understanding.
Well, what I think I did with that was, I took it, and it was all been approved by the Board of Aldermen.
Right.
And I moved it into the capital reserve fund, so that, yes, we would like to do it as soon as possible this year, but God forbid if it has to go into the next year, I can roll the funds
This is
over.
something the alderman have already approved, and it's not going to be in.
So Peter, can we reduce this line, and just if you could check that out. It's Jim's suggestion that that 4901000 equipment has been earmarked for improvements to SCADA.
Okay.
So just confirm if that is indeed the case.
And we may not need, if we already did a fund transfer, we may not need this 80,000.
Right.
So Jim, I need to look back at the recent allocation transfer, and if it was for SCADA, then, okay, I'll talk, I'll circle back to it.
Excellent.
Who are you training, Jim, to take over?
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
I'll talk, I'm sorry, Jim, I keep forgetting.
Who are you training to take over?
We have talked to that.
It's not the same one.
A good candidate.
We'll talk about it.
You know, and I think there's people around there that are good candidates.
Yeah.
I think we'll, you know, I definitely don't think we're gonna collapse to Jim Cooper's there. I think we'll do well.
You just make sure that we'll come back to you.
Thank you for all of your service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the 28 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Already done all of that area, yeah.
Okay. I think well, sewer commission, everything, that's it.
Right. Good.
Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure coming here every year.
Pleasure.
You wouldn't think so, but it really is, you know, to be able to be involved with people that are volunteering their time and putting their best efforts forward for the city. It's important stuff, and I don't know if everybody appreciates it, but I do.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
4154, sewer commission, fund 12.
98.
We could, I have any questions?
Yeah, I think,
You guys fine?
yeah, I think it's,
Yeah.
This is actually one of the departments where we made a reduction in staff and consolidated with the operations. A couple different personnel, one being our engineering administrator, who's
Right.
taking on some of the duties and responsibilities of that position.
right. That was last year we did that, right?
Within the last year,
Within the last year. Okay.
but actually recreated different job descriptions that civil service has approved and went through a bunch of different hurdles in order to get to where we are now.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have in this one is the, why do we use the available fund balance of 500,000 for this? That's on the revenue.
On the revenue side,
Yeah.
is that to pay off debt? Is that to pay off the,
No, what that is it's similar to how, to some extent, how we use fund balance in the general fund.
Right.
You know, the sewer fund generates a surplus each year.
Okay.
And traditionally, we've held it at 250,000, but I increased it last year to 500,000 because the surplus has been healthier because we've tried to manage expenditures, for example, and we've cut in certain areas, so we felt comfortable that with the current fund balance levels, we could increase that and help to bring the sewer fee down.
Oh, I get you, okay.
this doesn't affect taxes, this affects
No.
the sewer.
It affects the sewer use fee.
Right.
How much of a balance do we have there? Do you know, Peter, offhand? It's not necessarily, but.
Yeah, I think, that was asked by the Board of Aldermen, but I can get you the
Yeah,
exact.
you really don't need it,
Yeah.
just
But
curiosity kills a cat.
If there's nothing further on sewer commission, public debt service 4503.
78. the new bonds we just approved and all that in this figure yet?
Yes,
They are.
the new bonds are in this figure, but the reason it has been held, an increase, a small increase, and that is attributable mainly to the past 3 refundings that we've done.
Okay.
It would have been a larger increase, but for the fact that the refinancing, the refundings that we've done offset a little bit.
Yes.
This, I mean, some of the debt that we're refunding is 30 years old.
Right.
It's projects that happened 30 years ago. Some of them are recent projects, but it's all grouped into this.
School debt service 4994.
93. That's the same situation. We have bonding just approved for the schools as well.
Yes, same situation, but this is for the education
Right.
of the schools.
Okay.
So the principal went up.
The principal went up here, yes.
Do we have any refunding? We had refunding out of this as well?
We did, yes, we did have some.
Okay.
4995, employee benefits non-teaching.
That's just a flat figure.
4710, employee benefits general.
84. Blue Cross retirees, is that the under 65 people?
Yes, those, well, no, that's for the Medicare supplemental plans. So those are for retirees that go enroll in Medicare, but there's also a MGAT or Medicare supplemental plan to cover that gap between what Medicare covers and
Right.
what isn't.
We pay for that?
We pay the premiums. This
Who's this
line
for?
item is fully insured, so we pay the premiums. It's called the Blue Cross 65 plan.
Right.
Plan.
No, the teachers are not under this.
No.
Some Board of Ed employees are though.
Maybe, yeah, there are.
Oh, yeah,
some,
the administrative.
The
Administrators are,
Yeah.
There's a small, it's a small group, but there
Right.
are some Board of Ed, yeah.
Are they, is this the only plan they're offered, just the Blue Cross?
They're not offered, the vast majority are on the low option plan, which is cheaper, and then there are a handful that are on the high option.
But they can they go to Connecticut or any of those other plans?
For the Board of Ed this year, this is for current employees, not retirees. They did offer as an option a HSA plan. I don't know who administers it. I don't know if Anthem administers it. I don't think they do. But
The HSA,
this is on the school side.
the school side.
It's something we're looking to
Yeah.
possibly follow suit with on the city side.
Is that a payroll deduction, HSA?
There could be. You could fund the HSA and get tax-free or
Right.
reduced tax consequences to it. A lot of employers, and again, it all depends on what's negotiated between the employee and the employer.
Right.
Some employers they fund different amounts for their health savings account. Plus, a lot of employers will pay the premium in addition to funding the HSA.
That's a big amount.
If you look at one of the figures, though, that did not increase, that has traditionally increased at about 10% each year, going back 20 years, our health insurance costs, if you look historically, we've had about is this fair, Peter, between a 7 and a 10% increase every single year for 20 years. This is really the first year where it's in a long, long time where it's been relatively flat.
Yeah, we're hoping that the forecast pulled out, and the mayor is correct, this is the first year that we're seeing a relatively flat increase.
This is based on what the actuaries project.
Projected claims.
Now, when you say a Medicare reimbursement, what exactly is that? That the Medicare premiums?
That's the Medicare Part B premium, yes.
Part B premium.
Which
we pay for that?
we reimburse.
Doesn't that come out of their Social Security
It
check?
comes out of their Social Security and we reimburse it, yes.
What a good life.
That's a contractual.
Chris was right. Good company to work for. Wow, that's $90 a month for every employee.
About $104.
Is that what it is now for you?
On average, yes.
Well, that's right, Mike, I did get a reduction. No, but I got an
Sure work for the city.
Peter, the pension for the fire, police in general, is that an annual contribution?
Yeah, they switched from what was called the ARC, the annual required contributions, to a different formula. This is the Financial Oversight Board.
The Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB.
Yeah. And so now it's an ADEX.
ADEX.
What does ADEX stand for?
Actuarial Determined Employer Contribution.
And so we had several years where we did not have to pay a lot. For the last 2 years, that has increased. This year, we're paying $600,000 more than we did the previous year.
Right.
And as a forewarning, it looks like it's going to hold steady at that figure for a while, unless the market turns significantly. The good news is that out of all the municipalities in the entire state of Connecticut, Milford is among the top 2 most well-funded pension plans in the state. Bristol, Connecticut has traditionally had the most well-funded or richest pension fund, and Milford's been right there. But it's still a huge liability that we have, and we devote a lot of money to it.
Yeah, but at least it's funded. A lot of towns, like in our neighborhood, have bonded to fund their pensions, which.
Stratford last year took out $225 million
Bond.
in bonds to fund their pension last year.
Which is insanity.
That's insanity.
I don't think you even saw that in the paper, did you?
Nope.
So Peter, that number, 4,524,654, was determined by an actuary?
Well, let me elaborate a little bit. As we talked about yes, it is determined by the actuary.
Okay, they give you that.
Independent actuary, they give you that number.
Right.
And it's based on a lot of factors. Last year's number we talked about was close to 5.9 million. And we ended up budgeting 3.9. So there was like a shortfall, if you will, of 2 million.
We chopped it by 2 million.
So that kind of, to just simplify, kind of rolled over into the future, into this year.
Make that up.
So now that number of 5.9, was recalculated, readjusted, and went up to 7.2 million. And we are funding 4.5. And you might ask, well, why is it 6.8 under department request? I mean, I don't know, the mayor can stop me, I don't want to give too much detail, but the police and fire.
It's similar to
negotiations.
It's similar to our OPEB grants, where Peter probably recommended $16 million or $17 million. I think it went down a little bit to like $14 million, but
yeah.
The bonding agencies like to see that you're making a good faith effort to do it. For the pension, we're there, and for the OPEB trust, we have some work to do.
Is that the post-employment benefits?
Yes. The policy that's been adopted is that you don't do more than 15%.
Yeah, we looked at it carefully to come up with a kind of a policy that we could use as a guideline. And we said if the contribution, if the increase is more than 115% of last year's contribution, then we would cap the increase to that 15%, and that's why we did the 600,000 more.
which is a little bit over 50%.
Yeah, it's a little over, the 600,000 increase, a little over 15%.
Okay, the 2 lines down, the post-employment benefits, you recommended 12 million?
Yes.
That's something that Gadsby came out with maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, that they wanted to see that municipalities were funding into the future through a trust, their post-retirement benefits. Up until relatively recently, Milford had been paying as you go. If you look at some of the budget line items, like for example, the self-insurance contribution, that's one of the line items that goes towards the pay as you go. And we're also, in addition to paying for the current liabilities, we're also looking to, through the $500,000 grant, pay for some of the prospective liabilities that we have, similar to how our pension is funded, so we don't get into a situation for our post-employment benefits like some towns have for their pensions. And we have about $3 or $4 million at this point in our trust.
Yeah,
and we have a administrator of our trust overseeing and invested in.
And that OPEB trust, as the mayor correctly points out, it went, we've been putting in this $500,000 over time, and now the balance is a little over $4 million. So the city side of the OPEB liability is it's a little better shape than the Board of Ed side, because the Board of Ed's OPEB ARC, if you will, is closer to 14 million, and ours has come down to this 12.2 because we established that trust. So we kind of get credit for that $4 million in our unfunded actuarial accrued liability, which is disclosed in our financial statements, and the rating agencies look at that too. That is also lower than the Board of Ed's because we have that trust on the city side.
And we established it in 2012.
Right.
And it's an investment in the long term, so they're a little bit more, I don't want to say risky investments, they're investments that
growth
for the long term, yes.
For the
long term horizon.
Yes. Anything else on employee benefits? 4720, insurance and bonds.
85, next door.
Yes. And below that, 4740, claims and refunds.
Can I ask you, what's fire and inland marine again? I ask this every year and I keep forgetting. The insurance for fire and inland marine, somebody else has that too. The harbor has that.
Yeah, I mean, that, I don't want to call it an obsolete term, but the bulk of that is for the flood insurance policies that we have and pay premiums for all the pump stations and some of the major municipal buildings.
Oh, all right. Flood insurance.
Yeah, flood.
Okay. Most of them.
4790, benefit and salary reserve. And unallocated contingency, 4799, page 86.
Now, benefit salaries, is that negotiations coming up? Is that what that is?
Yeah, we're currently involved in 2 negotiations with 2 collective bargaining units, and we have several others on the horizon for, as of July 1st, including 1566, which is Public Works. And so we put a percentage in the reserve, and once the contracts are negotiated, the employees are reimbursed the percentage amount.
Oh, yeah,
so if it's a 2% increase or a 1% increase or a 0.5% increase.
Right. Unallocated contingency, 4799, and then education audit, 4993, page 93, and education health insurance contribution.
94.
That's on 94.
Peter, come that went up?
That went up, but the city contribution went down, so the net is close to, it's roughly about $6,000. So it's roughly, it's a small amount, a small increase.
Why did theirs go up?
They're a larger population, so the claims tend to, fluctuate more on their end, and they,
Okay.
on their end, it has gone up.
All in, there's about, for both the city side and the Board of Ed side, about 5,000 belly buttons associated with our health insurance. So that's a $40 million approximately liability for the city.
Yeah.
Approximately 20% of the budget. So it's a big thing that we're constantly monitoring and working on.
Well, that's the one, yeah. They, you weren't here for this, they, checking the eligibility of the people in the system. That's the whole city.
That was the city and the Board of Ed.
And the Board of Ed, right.
So out of those 5,000 people, there were a few hundred people that came off the rolls, if you will, and are no longer on our health insurance because of that audit.
Yeah. Good work. That was good work.
And that's not something we need to do every year. But now that we have done it and kind of have made sure that everybody who's supposed to be on it is on it, now with new hires and new employees, there's going to be questionnaires and affidavits that they have to fill out that if they're on it and their spouse is on it, and if they get a divorce, the spouse has to come off it, or one of the other threshold requirements that brings off an eligible dependent.
Okay, so that's how people stay on it.
It's happened. I'm not saying that
All right, tomorrow night is education operations, same times, same place, 6:30.
Yeah.
I do have a copy of the Woodbine contract, if anyone's like a copy, I could do with Peter.
Okay.
And maybe.
Yeah, we're gonna have it tomorrow.
Yeah, we could even scan it.
Why don't we scan an email, that would be best. Thank you.
the good news, not great news, is that I met with the budgeting secretary today and the governor, and they did assure me that the governor's budget is going to be announced tomorrow. And again, it winds its way through the legislature, but he has held municipalities harmless. There was a fear that we may see significant cuts at the municipal level, but he has, for all of our ECS funding, all of our grants that we get each year, indicated that his budget at least does not make any cuts.
That is good.
He's cutting the sales tax too.
Huh?
Yeah, he's cutting the
Yeah,
sales
that'd
tax
be
too.
That is
Anything further this evening?
What do you want before I go?
Have a good night.
Ben, do you want anything before I go?
I'm good.
Candy, man.
So what do you think of the play? I think you and I were the two youngest people at that play.
You got that one right.
Kim.
I thought it was super.